please join me in giving a very warm welcome. First of all, the great actress who played Elizabeth Leafall, Anna O'Reilly. Thank you. Next up, another of the many great actresses in this movie. You know her from this film as Minnie Jackson, Octavia Spencer. Between this film and four others, I think you would have had to try not to see our next actress this year, who's fantastic. Celia Foote in this film, Jessica Chastain in real life. And finally, Oscar nominated for Doubt. She'll be back this year. Please welcome Viola Davis. So first of all, thank you all for being here, and congratulations again about this evening. And to begin with, I wanted to just take a second and put this in some perspective, because I think most people know The Help, or first knew about it as a best-selling book, but what they may not know is that it was turned down something like 60 times before it found a publisher. And it was at that stage in the process that Tate Taylor became involved as the director, or acquired the rights. And Octavia, I believe you knew him before anyone here, and I wonder if you can just explain how it came along from that point, and just also the background of your own relationship with him.
Well, Tate had this idea that he wanted to marry me, and I quickly dispelled. No, kidding. No, Tate and I met in 1996. We were both, or 1995. We were both PAs on A Time to Kill, and moved to LA the first week of January 1996, where he met his then roommate and producing partner, Brunson Green, who is here. And they basically acquired the rights to The Help. Tate read it, then gave it to Brunson to read, and they acquired the rights, and Tate started adapting it well before the book was even published, and then they asked me to read it, and I liked it and was happy to be a part of it.
And just one follow-up is that I understand that through Tate, you had met Catherine Stockett when she was writing it, and actually sort of influenced the character before there was ever going to even be a movie.
Well, this is true. I met her as she was fleshing out the what do you call it, outline, and she knew that Aibileen would basically be attributed to the woman who raised her, and didn't really know how she was going to model Minnie until this short and chubby and very grumpy woman, because I had only met her the one time, actually. She and I became friends subsequently after the book was published. But yeah, it was a hot day in New Orleans, about 108 degrees. I was 108 pounds overweight, and Tate thought it was a good idea to take us on a walking tour of New Orleans, and I decided that day that I was gonna diet. So it was really not good. So Minnie, if you read the book, she was always fanning and always complaining. That part was, yeah, I saw a lot of similarities in us.
Ms. Davis, I think my understanding is that Taylor knew from the start that he wanted you to play Aibileen, but I think his reasons are what they would have been for most of us, which is that, you know, you're a great actress. But what I learned from interviewing you back during the Doubt era was that you have an amazing story of your own that really makes you extra equipped to play a character like this in a way with just sort of such authenticity and dignity, just your personal history. And I wonder if you can share a little bit about growing up, where you did, when you did, around the people that you did, and if that helped you at all.
I'm surprised. I have a personal history. I guess I'll make one up right now, just to save myself. I think all of us, especially if you're black, have a personal connection to these characters. You know, all of our grandmothers or mothers or great-grand, they were maids. That's the profession that was allotted to us. That was what we did to make a living. So my mother was a maid, my grandmother was a maid, but I don't think that that's different from many people's story. And I also think that if you were born any time before 1970, that it definitely is your story of racial prejudice. Actually, in the 21st century, it could be your story. But really, I was born in 1965, and my father groomed and trained horses. And the biggest racetracks were in Central Falls, well, actually in Rhode Island. So we moved to Central Falls, Rhode Island in 1965, the only black family in Central Falls, Rhode Island. And so I had it, whatever you could imagine in your mind it was exactly what it was like. And my mom always tells a story of when I was a year old, and I had rickets. And I was in the hospital. And she said I was not doing well. And the doctor decided he wanted to break my bones, the bones in my legs, to see if they would grow back straight. So basically, he wanted to use me as an experiment. And my mom has an 8th grade education. My father has a 5th grade education. My mom got married, had children 15 years old. So I think the doctor really thought he could take advantage of her. And my mom said she literally, personally had to go to the hospital one night and unhook the tubes and physically take me out of the hospital. And I think she took me to a friend's house who fed me, this is what she says, a bowl of lima bean soup and a glass of water, and then after that I was cured. But, so you take that with a grain of salt, but you know, I guess that would be my personal history.
I want to ask Jessica next, if I can. Just both Tate and Catherine said in various interviews and things over the last few months that they were both raised by single mothers and by their maids that they grew up with in the South, roughly around this time. And they said, Tate said, quote, "We both like to think that our mothers were Celia's, sort of forward-thinking outcasts themselves who understood, who had empathy and were maybe different than the rest of the community." When you read this part, what did you initially make of it?
I mean, to be honest, the biggest leap for me with playing the role is reading the script, and in the book there's so many comments about how beautiful Celia is, or like how sexy. That for me was a huge thing that I had to conquer because I've never played a role like that before. And I guess what I just realized is Celia probably didn't think that she was that, which is why she tries so hard all the time, and because she wants to look good for her husband, and because she really, I felt like, didn't think that she had much to offer, and she was constantly trying to prove herself worthy of this new life that she had lucked into. So I guess with anything, when I'm approaching a role, I always try to find, well, this is kind of 101, but why the character is doing that. So instead of just coming on and being like, oh, you know, this wiggling caricature, I was struggling with trying to find out, well, why is she like that?
Anna, I want to ask you, I think that, I know that you and Octavia knew each other before this, and in fact, you had worked together on a little independent project with a funny name. Maybe you can tell us about your background with each other, just how you guys knew each other.
Well, Octavia and I did a little independent film about 3 years ago called Herpes Boy. And there's no herpes in it whatsoever. It's about a boy with a big birthmark and he gets teased. And in any case, Octavia and I got to be good friends on that film and stayed in touch. And then before they started auditioning people, Octavia called me and said, "You have to read this book. I don't care what, I'm gonna get you an audition." And, you know, I had very few impressive credits to my name, and I thought, okay, well, we'll see. And then when they started casting, I know they were seeing all these famous girls, and you know, they'd had their director sessions, and Octavia said, I'm bringing you in. She got me into the casting director, and they put me on tape. And she didn't want really to tell Tate that she was my friend, just in case that might work against me. And so I really owe being a part of this to Octavia for getting me in there. And really, it's such a lovely story. And then we got to live together during the shooting of the film, which was so much fun.
She can cook.
Which, ironically, I was reading you say you can't, which is, that was your whole claim, but.
I'm afraid of bugs.
We had a good time.